show, bro.
All right. Well, here we go, boys. This is Quantum League Capital here, and we're back with another motherfucking interview. And today we're here with my boy Chris. Just a brief introduction of me and Chris's history is he's a friend of my older brother Joseph, and originally he's the one that got me into trading. He's the one that taught me a lot of things that I still use to this day. And another thing that he showed me was the market maker method, which taught me all about manipulation and essentially how markets are moving. So yeah, and now I'm gonna pass it to Chris and let him introduce himself.
So I'm Chris. I've been trading since like 2012, whenever I quit my dead-end job as a barista. And honestly, ever since I started trading, I knew that, I'll be honest, I lost a lot of money when I first started trading, but I knew if I could lose that much money, I can make that much money. But the key is just being consistent and having a proper trading plan and then sticking to the basics and mastering them.
And so, a question I have for you from your perspective, if you were to give advice to someone who's just starting out, what would you give? Like, what is the biggest piece of advice you would tell them to follow?
I think the biggest piece of advice when trading is probably going to be risk management, because that's always what's fucked me in the past is definitely don't over leverage, but also learning how to compound on winning trades.
And I think that's a great point to bring up as well, because I think that's literally my number one rule after just going through so many blown accounts. And like, I think everybody goes through this. If you start out trading and you don't have the proper risk management or someone to guide you in the right way, then you're going to lose a bunch of money, because you're going to start over leveraging like he said, and you're going to think, "Oh, I can make all this money." And if you do it the right way, you can do it. There's people that flip accounts all the time, but when you're just starting out, I would highly advise against it. Um so over the course of how long you've been trading, how many accounts would you say you've blown?
Yeah, honestly, I probably blown like 20 accounts. I've probably blown like 20 accounts, like no lie.
And for me too, I would say probably somewhere around the same or even more, because I've traded personal accounts, but also I've traded these funded accounts. And these funded accounts, I would consider it a failed challenge, a blown account, and I've failed plenty of challenges. Um, so what would you say is your style of trading and just your overall perspective on trading when it comes to like manipulation? Do you like short-term trading, swing trading? You talked about compounding your trades. Could you explain to the people like your style of trading and what is your method?
Uh, I don't necessarily just trade swing trades or scalping or day trading. I usually look for a good setup, as in overall market direction. And then from there, I will place, small day trades and including swing trades. So I usually look for, say, resistance, and I trade zone to zone to be completely transparent. Is I look for zones of accumulation and distribution within the market, and I trade between them. And then I try to maximize overall market movement and direction. And then whenever I am trading these swing trades, I also have day trades within those swing trades that I'm trying to capitalize on. So I think you have to know overall market direction, along with zones, and also how to understand how the market is manipulated. You're looking for stop hunts. I usually place my entries where most people are probably placing their stop loss, and that way I can get the maximum amount of money that I can make, because I know that the market is manipulated. I know that they're going to come and stop out a bunch of these people with trailing stops, or these people with stop losses. It's just how the market works, and if you can't understand the manipulation within it, you're going to get stopped out almost every time, or you're not going to have enough leverage to be able to even hold your trade to those points. Because even though the market may move just a little bit on the candlesticks on the chart, in reality, you're actually dealing with a lot of money every single micro pip that's changed.
Yeah, that is so true. Like, a lot of people don't realize, but pretty much every movement, I would say, is orchestrated. Like, it's done with a purpose and with a certain intention. Because you have to realize Forex has some of the most money moving. I think it actually has the most money moving in a market daily. It's something like $5 to $6 trillion. So you have to realize, like, in order to move this amount of money, any sort of pips, like, it's very, very intentional. And you can look up articles to anybody that doesn't believe that the manipulation is real. You can look up articles where, JP Morgan, like Deutsche Bank, like all these banks have gotten caught collaborating and manipulating the markets together and getting like hundreds of millions of dollars in fines, but they're making billions of dollars. So it really doesn't fucking mean shit to them. Um, and another interesting thing when it comes to manipulation, and like he said, a really smart thing to do is place your entries where the stop losses are. But a lot of people don't realize whenever your stop loss gets hit, so say you're selling, your stop loss turns into a buy order. And I think that's a lot of people, like people that are new into the market, don't understand that. Because like once it hits like a certain stop loss or it runs like a certain type of liquidity, you'll see it kind of burst up for a little bit. Like if it's pushing up, you're like, whoa, holy shit. It's because there's orders there that are buys already, but then there's also people's stop losses, which turns into buys. So I think that's something people should stay aware of as well.
I was gonna say something. The reason that happens is because there's no money actually made in the market. For anybody to gain any value, any type of monetary means in the market, that means somebody else lost that money. So every time you put in an order for, through your broker on MT5 or MT4, basically what happens is, say you sell one lot, that means they're buying one lot, as in a hedging against you, essentially. So for every dollar that you make, someone somewhere in that market lost that money.
Yeah, and that's so true. For every buyer, there's a seller. For every seller, there's a buyer. There is certain things called imbalances where price can have fluctuations where it is like, what's the word? Like inefficient price action. But usually what ends up happening is they come back down to fill those. That's a more like technical analysis type of term. But yeah. Another question that I have for you is, and this is something that I asked Franz, and I'm interested to get your perspective on it, is if for someone who's just starting out, or not necessarily just starting out, but let's say that they found their strategy, they have their foundation, they have a good understanding of the markets, would you suggest to them to use their own personal account, or would you suggest to them to use a funded account and use other people's money? Which would you suggest to someone?
Well, to be honest, the challenge accounts, they're not easy. You have very strict regulations when you are trading those accounts. Yes, you can get a lot more money to trade with. You can have a 200K account for $1,000. But the thing is, you're also, every time you're doing these funded accounts, you're always risking that $1,000 essentially. So if you also wanted to trade $1,000, I mean, you can trade it with a lot less risk, and you can still make just as much money as you would have on a normal account, depending on the leverage that your broker allows, and also how well you are at understanding technical analysis on these charts and understanding the liquidity that's being made. But it just really depends on how skilled you are. I think the challenge accounts are a great way to hone in your discipline. when trading, teaching you not to over leverage, not to over risk, teaching you overall market price and manipulation. It's a great way to start out. Um, I personally just like trading a small amount of money in my own personal account that I build up. Because I mean, you saw me turn $400 into 3K in just what, a week and a half, and I mean that's pretty insane. That's like a 700% increase right there. So if you have the skill set, you can make a lot of money. Still, you can make an actual wage with a small amount of money if you know what you're doing trading your own personal account versus the challenge accounts. Essentially, you're waiting a month, 2 months to pass the challenge account before you ever even get paid out. And then not only that, but if you fail that account, you're just also out of the $1,000. So I mean, it really depends up to the person and what they're willing to risk, I feel like.
Yeah, and I would say that's a great way to put it. Obviously, I'm a big advocate for challenge accounts and funded accounts because I think that having that much money is just insane. But he brings up a lot of good points that people don't mention when it comes to the risk, which is when you lose that money, I mean, you fucking lose that money. Like, you're not getting it back. Whereas when you're trading your own personal account, you have less restrictions. There's not many things holding you back. And it's not like there's a time limit. Because I think that's where it gets a lot of people, is a lot of people could make 10%, right? But when you have to do it within 30 days, but then you really break it down and there's only 20 trading days. So realistically, you're having to make 10% in 20 days, which is a lot of money.
It's not even just 20 days. It's like not every day there's a setup either.
Right, right. And not every day there's a setup. And so it really is tough. You have 20 days. If they were 20 good days where there's a setup, and it can be really, really difficult. Now, if you can do it, it's really worth it. But like Chris said as well, there are ways to take a small amount of money and turn it into a big amount of money within a short amount of time. You just have to be really, really disciplined. Now, that is one thing you also pointed out that I agree with about the challenge accounts, is it will teach you discipline, because if you keep taking these challenges and you keep risking, eventually you're going to get to the point where you're tired of banging your head against the fucking wall. Like, you're going to be like, why do I keep doing this? I'm spending so much money and I keep failing them because I'm risking too much. Eventually you'll get to the point where you're sick of it, and you're like, it's just whenever it gets drilled into your head, eventually enough pain will make you change. Enough pain will make you change. They say, like, the two ways that we change is through pain or through, like, creating. So you can choose whichever way you want. And I think my laptop's actually about to die. So I guess the last question I would ask you is, again, what would be some of the most important advices you'd give to someone who's just starting out, and what, like, words of motivation do you have for them? Because a lot of people don't know, but trading, like, the career, unless you start off with a good mentor and, like, the right guidance, is going to be a lot of struggles, especially when you first start out. Like, you are going to lose money and it's going to fucking suck. So what, like, motivational words do you have for them, and what advice would you give them, just to wrap this up?
Words of advice would be stay disciplined, understand chart the chart, understanding the patterns, understanding supply and demand, accumulation and distribution, understand stop hunts. Because I mean, honestly, looking at the charts, when you understand it, when you understand these patterns, when you understand just the distribution and accumulation of price action and smart money concepts, it's honestly very easy. But you're going to have to, in your trading journey, master your own emotions, because most people that get into trading is because they want to make money. And you have to realize that before you make money, you have to have the skill set and the emotional the emotional shield, basically, the emotional fortitude to to be able to stick with your gut even when you're a little negative and be like, look, I understand the chart's going either up or down based off of these actions, these price actions. And if you can't, you know, risk that because you're over leveraging, or you start getting this emotional breakdown within you, you're going to start questioning yourself. You're going to start questioning what you're doing on these charts. It's going to cause you to do a bunch of dumb things within the market, trying to change your order position, trying to change your order directions, and you're just going to end up losing money because you're not emotionally stable, essentially. And until you can master yourself, it's going to be very hard to master these charts, because the charts are only 10% of the work. I was like, the rest of the 90%, that's all internal. So if you can't master your own mind, you can't master your own actions, and stick to a plan that you've tried over and over again, and seen its success, then uh, you're gonna have a real hard time. So I mean, you just gotta really back test your strategy, make sure it works, make sure it applies in most cases. You're not gonna win every trade, but that's when risk management comes into play, and you can't be just risking your whole account like that. You know, you take a loss sometimes, just step away, come back another day. Like, I mean, it's just the name of the game. How many times can you get hit and keep moving forward? So
And yeah, that was a great fucking way to put it. And I think I'll say pretty much what I said the last time I was ending the podcast with Franz is, and it goes hand in hand with what he's saying. You need to figure out your strategy. You need to have a trading journal so you can recognize these patterns. Because, like he said, it's really about mastering yourself. The psychological aspect of trading is so overlooked by most people. It's insane because a lot of these movements, and especially when money starts getting involved and you see you're in red and all these things, it starts to mess with your brain psychologically and you start getting emotional. The markets are designed this way. Like, that was all intentional. So that's something that you need to recognize, and you can recognize your patterns through journaling your trades. Like, you can say like, oh, I was feeling this way during the trade, and like when you start to read through your previous trades, you will notice the patterns. Like, oh, when it went negative that one time, or like a couple different times, like, oh, I got like upset and I closed too early, but then it went my way. Or like I added another position because I was like, oh no, it's gonna go my way, and then it fucked me even harder. You know what I mean? So you'll start to notice these patterns. And once you start to notice these patterns, then you can start to change it. And then you can start to make yourself better. So it really is about self mastery. That's a great way to put it. And yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up here. So thank you, Chris, for the interview. Any last words?
no, just thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.